Well, thank you. As Andy says, I'm a forager. Spent the last 13 years foraging, collecting wild vegetables, working with a handful of chefs, but that sort of spread a little bit. Learning, just trying to find the more tasty, more beautiful plants. I've got a little display around here. This is all edible food, and you can pick up on the vibe. It is beautiful just even just looking at it. I've also got a couple of these photos, just showing again, that's a beech tree there, and just the magnificence of nature. That's really part of what my experience is and my privilege of going out and about. What we're going to begin with is sharing with you this plant, wood sorrel, Oxalis acetosa. In the SES Survival Guide, you'll find it detailed as a poisonous plant. But I've given this to the Queen, and she ate it. So I reckon there's no reason why you guys shouldn't. I've also selected, as you'll hear picking up in the background, a little bit of Irish music. Because wood sorrel, Oxalis acetosa, has these three beautiful heart-shaped leaves. And it's just my favourite plant. And you can tell the weather because it folds its leaves down when the rain clouds are coming and stuff like that. I was telling people out on our walk, when it freezes over, I pick it in the snow all year round. It drops its water content, gets a lot lighter, but still you can pick it and still you can eat it. And this is a shot of the wood sorrel in the forest. I can spend 8 hours of a day just picking this stuff alone and be doing that for 3 days. It's a long haul picking lightweight plants like this. But anyway, this is wood sorrel Oxalis. I'm going to pass a little bit around. I want everybody to just have 2 or 3 blades, maybe 4. No worries, it isn't. The poisonous thing is only if you eat it in huge quantity. If you were to stop and try and survive on it for a month, just making. Sorry?
Can you show us that eating it?
Now, nobody's going to try any until I say. We're all going to have it, and then when I say, we'll try it. So I'll pass a little bit down each line, and if you just separate a few. I might have to come back if there's you run out.
Thank you.
Everybody got a blade of wood sorrel? Hold up your wood sorrel if you've got a blade of wood sorrel. We got a full house of wood sorrel. Okay, so now, absolutely no worries. Feel free to taste a bit. They say just eat the leaves, but you can eat a bit of the stalk. Stalk's a bit chewy. Sorry?
It's pretty chewy.
Pretty chewy indeed.
Bit lemony.
Lemony, that's the tang. Wood sorrel, like acetosa. I use a garnish on fish and in a dish. It's just so easy, just because it's heart-shaped leaf. It's just so you just lay it on your dish, and so that's the principal use of it. But it also acts as a hangover cure, and you can extract salts of lemon out of it. So that's a little bit about wood sorrel. It's just amazing how much you find. Almost just within 30 feet of this place here, I can find pretty much every plant that I've got here. It's all around us, though you need different terrains. I described earlier, it's an Ordnance Survey map as a key fit thing to go and find stuff. And you look for your water courses and your forest areas, and that combination of forest and water is going to be good. But you want to get out of the forest as well, because not everything grows well in the forest. So you want to get outside of the forest, but look for a good bit of terrain and go somewhere different. And yeah, we all got soaked, but it turned out lovely. It wasn't the sort of obvious time to go out for a walk. And if we had gone for a walk just for a walk, we'd have been just trudging along, getting rained on. But suddenly we were stopping and interacting, and I think that's very much about what foraging is that interaction with nature, which is wonderful. And then very quickly, some guides of the books that I refer to. Obviously, a good tree book you can't beat, because a lot of the trees carry various vegetables and fruits. Culpeper dates back to the 1600s, and all kinds of references to medicinal use. All these plants have medicinal qualities. And then Roger Phillips's Wild Food Book, bigging up one main man, but Richard Mabley was in the 60s, was really big, and did a lovely book, Food for Free. He's now got a little pocket guide out. But Roger Phillips' book's lovely with all its pictures. It's very kind of clear. Identification is key. It's not to be taken along. As we joked earlier about it, there's some people in Scotland that were picking mushrooms only the other day, and they're in hospital at the moment. They got it wrong. So, you need to know about your plant. I walk past the same plant sometimes for 4 years before I've worked out what it is. You see it, you think you know what it is, but you don't get it necessarily straight away. But that doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Just learn a plant at a time. Work your way through. Anyway, we're going to let go of the Irish music. And the beginning. So this is the story I'm going to tell. I mean, part of it is this is the Do lectures. It's about do. And as I understand it, every one of you here is up to something. Has got a project or a scheme or a plan. And that's obviously a very exciting part of life, is doing projects like that. And my life unfolded as it unfolded. I grew up, my mother was admittedly into plants and things like that, so I had a background in it, but I wouldn't say that I was a forager until, well, 13 years ago I got into it. But what I do know is that I had this feeling that I wanted to do something to help the planet. And so I didn't know, again, how I was going to get to that project, to do that thing, and I've always had this reluctance to give to charities. I've never signed up to Greenpeace or Friends of the Earth. I'm embarrassed to say it. I haven't had lots of money spare, so maybe that's why. If I could easily spare £20 a month, I'd give them £20 a month. Because I think they're great what they're doing, and what they've done is fantastic. And there's many other organisations, perhaps even amongst you, people doing stuff. But it's clearly a very popular subject now. This planet is in serious trouble. And we've had people referring to, I think, Gaia, or Gaia, however you pronounce it, the life force, the thin crust of life. And anyway, you'll find this on my webpage. I've got mountainfood.org, which is my wild food business, but I created ourpreciousplanet.org, which is a project which I'm launching today. And again, I felt it was appropriate because it's about doing. And I've been talking about this project for a long time. I've always wanted to do something. I had the webpage, it's been out for a few months, I created it. But I've actually got my first school interest. I've had the headmaster say that he'll put his kids, 12 of his kids forwards to be working with the project. The idea is very simply about linking schools throughout the world. Each school joins up with another in the UK and one abroad, and they in turn will do the same, and you get a chain reaction, and they link throughout the world. Taking advantage of the internet, they can then share their information, and what the children are basically doing is mapping their local area, having an understanding of what's going on in that local area, understanding the pollution, understanding where the wild places are and what the wild animals are. So it's like an understanding of their own little environment. At the same time, they're also all individually working out their carbon footprint. I've yet to work out mine. Maybe some of you have. There's pages on the net where we can go and do it. But it is very relevant to know what you're doing, what your footprint is. So the entire school, all the children go back to their families and find out what their footprints are. And then every child plants a tree. And those are the 3 simple things they've got to do. Now, within those projects, there's buzzwords like key skills, and I hope that this will take off for that reason, because this is what children need to do. They need to understand their community. They need to go out there and interact with them. And so that's basically the idea. And the idea is I'm going to sow a seed, and I've got this one school, and they have to go to another, and I've got a few other schools that expressed interest, and I just have to key up with them. And of course, you only have to go on Blue Peter or do something like that. I wrote for BBC Countryfile magazine for 6 months when they first launched, and they've said they'll do a piece. And part of it is that my work with wild food, I've done various bits of television and radio, and very privileged because not many people are doing this particular field. So I've been just I've just walked into lots of opportunity. But I want to use that. Where is it going with the foraging? I mean, I'm learning about foraging, it's wonderful, but there's something very important going on with this planet, and every time I talk about it, none of you's yawned yet, thank you very much, but we've heard it all before, and we've heard all these efforts, but where are they going? But my idea was that if the families individually link, if the children take charge of it, and they simply go home and do things like say, right, we're all going to switch off our power for 1 hour tonight at home. The freezer doesn't mind if it's switched off for 1 hour, so switch it off for 1 hour. And everybody does that in that school. That's 1,000 kids, 1,000 families switch off their power for 1 hour. But it's not just that school, because that's linked with 3 other schools, one in the UK, one abroad. And those schools are all in turn linked with others. Imagine if we get mass efforts like that. That's the way to make change. And so I'm very confident. I've met with some government people just through my talks. You get all kinds of people coming out on these talks. I had the Queen's dentist, and I had some guy doing, working with the Severn Barrage doing government reports. So I'm confident, but the reason I brought this here is to share with you something in its embryonic stage, which I've got to make happen. I've got to do to pull this off. But the rest of what I'm going to talk about is what I am doing, and it's going very nicely. Thank you very much. I'm enjoying it. I'm here talking to you. It's wonderful. But that's a little bit about that. So we'll move on. So we begin with the blackberry, the common blackberry. Now, hands up everybody who picks blackberries, and hands up everybody who picks blackberry and does something with them, makes crumbles, jams. That's a pretty good show. That's a pretty good show. It's the most common and popular plant. Quite beautiful there. I mean, the ripening plants. And as I shared with the people out in the earlier, if you want a taste of a blackberry season's only now and for another month or so. You've got the sounds of the birds in the background there, little cunning little thing I've introduced. And the idea is to share with you the environment, because this is what happens when you're out foraging, is you're kind of there with nature, and that's one of the most special things. If you're just blasting along in your car or going for a quick walk, but walking's good. How many people here go for walks? Pretty good show. I'm one of these people that doesn't go for walks. I've got 2 dogs, So, you know, you can shoot me now or later. But the point is that they come out with me on my tree work, they come out with my foraging. We spend our life going out and about, so they're not shorter walks, I suppose. But you can't beat a walk for the meditation, for just walking, as everybody who put their hand up knows. You know, and I'm sure the people who didn't put their hand up, they go for a walk at Christmas, you know, after dinner or whatever it is. You know, we all go. And a friend's mum, she goes after every meal, she goes for a walk. And she's a fit 75-year-old. You know, it's kind of, you know, it's important to walk, to interact with nature like that. So we got some blackberries there, and more blackberries. This is me. I just picked up this camera the other day, and this was the day before yesterday. Out one day, all these photos were taken in the one day, and just to show you the world I see. Not quite true, because there are about 4 photos I've pulled in that I took some other time, but pretty much all of them are on the one day, and it's just, you know, how beautiful the environment is, and photography captures that. Blue sky. Well, okay, we might even have a bit of that going on right now. I can't hear the rain. In fact, I can see the blue sky right through that little hole in the roof there, and that's what it's all about. Is that that environment? You know, that's what you get when you go out. A phrase I use is blue sky days. Maybe it's corny, God knows, but I love, you know, and you get this thing of, I'll tell you a story about a plant a bit later, but yeah, the weather, it's just, that's what you get with foraging. You go out and you get different weather. It might be sunny, but then again it might be down with rain or hail, or I was out one day just down the road from here near a village of Aberkeith, and I went across this little bridge. It's one of these ancient little bridges, and I was in this Peugeot diesel car, so it was handling the flooding problem, no problem. And there was about 1.5 foot of water as I drove through the approach to the bridge. Then I went over the bridge, no water, and then down back into about 1.5 foot of water, and then along, and then up the valley and out. Went to my friend's place for a cup of coffee. I was on a foraging day. When I came back, the bridge was gone. 200-year-old bridge, gone. Just taken away by that river. And that shows you, again, the forces of nature. When we were out in our forest just now, I had a wipeout. It wasn't very exciting. Only a couple of people probably noticed it and smirked as I off into the mud, you know, got my hat covered in mud. But you know, that's foraging again. You get these interactions. But that was a cool wipeout. That was one we could laugh about. But you only have to slip off. I get places where we have these little 12, 15-foot cliffs. There's a cliff along here. You only have to fall off the edge of a cliff. You've broken a leg. So again, if you're out foraging on your own, let somebody know. I've got a girl that works with me, amazing lady. Absolute hats off to the woman, because it's a tough life foraging. And she's out in the winter. And there was only one day I heard tears in her voice. I could just tell she was breaking. And I came and joined her, because the wind was blowing and she was afraid the trees were going to come down and hit her, because trees were blowing down. And I was telling the story earlier of sitting on the roots of these conifer trees. When the wind's really blowing, you can sit on the root base. And it's like a fairground ride, and you just rise up and down as you're sitting on the base of the tree. So it can get pretty wild out there. So, you know, 1 minute it's all laugh and jokes, and then a bit like sailing at sea. It can be lovely, but it can suddenly change. So don't get involved with that crossover unless you know what you're doing. You're never going to prepare for it. It's the unexpected. It comes upon you, but, you know, just be sensible. Kind of obvious. So there we are. I was talking about the blackberry. That's the blackberry leaf, and if you catch it in its new form, looking like that, it's not only looks lovely, fresh new growth, but it tastes of blackberry. It takes a little while. It takes about 20 seconds for the taste to come through. The likes of Heston Blumenthal could actually extract essence of blackberry out of it, so that's the blackberry leaf. So yeah, all year round you can get the taste of blackberry. Crabapples, beautiful plant. We actually found a few on our trail today, and here they are. I love it just because, obviously, from our Adam and Eve stories, and you know, apples, it's sort of one of man's fruits, perhaps one of nature's fruits they give to man to find, to help share this, you know, drop the seeds around and stuff like that. But they're just kind of just a lovely thing, and it's nature's source of pectin for making jelly. And I've made a crabapple with hawthorn and rosehip. Made a combination, but using the crabapple, just about 3 or 4 of these, and you create the pectin, and that sets the jelly for you. So again, as I was telling people earlier, the pectin you buy is not good if you look at the ingredients. It's frightening what pectin is. So if you can get it out of this, it's got to be a good thing. Agar is another way of getting your pectin. And these are little crab apples. Now those ones you can't really tell because of the photos, but these were much smaller. It shows you the difference of the trees. And I was then doing a little bit of research trying to understand about crab apples, and obviously they're distinctive because of their tartness, their bitterness. Yes, obviously these trees can spread and they can cross over with other trees, the ordinary apples, but the true crabapple is a very small, like this, a small apple. And this one I found in a lane. I'd seen it last year. I'd noticed this flush of fruit, and I actually thought it was another plant. I thought, it can't be apples. They were so ripe, they were yellowy at the time, and I wondered what it was. And that's part of foraging again, is you see stuff and then you go back to it another time and you get to know where things are. And so I went back to it this year, and there it was. Lo and behold, I knew roughly where to find it, and there it was, picked it. Wasn't sure what it was, but by the time I crossed over the leaf, that's the crabapple. And again, a lot of foraging is about knowing where things are. Once you know where your crabapples are, then that's your crabapples sorted. So like you know where your tin tomatoes are on your aisle at, we won't name the supermarket, but you know, it's the same way with the wild food. You know where stuff is, you can then go and find it. Gorse flowers. Lovely. We found some earlier, but they weren't actually in flower. The flowers had all died. Beautiful yellow flower. The people with me know what it smells like, but what does it smell like? Coconut, indeed. Now, isn't that amazing to get the essence of coconut in the UK, not going to the Caribbean? Never had the privilege, but you know, we get coconuts here. The essence of coconut. So I picked those petals. I was commuting up to London at one point, and I just sort of, I just worked out this thing with the coconut and the essence. I thought, yeah, I'll put it with white rum. So I was on the train and I had this problem that I had rum in a bottle and I needed to put stuff in it. And so I was drinking the rum back to empty the bottle a little bit to make room for the gorse, and then started filling it up with the gorse flowers. And then, of course, it started changing and going yellow. And I was wondering, is it smelling of coconut? And it's only a 4.5-hour run, but I was pretty smashed by the time I got into Paddington and trying to work out whether, you know, if it was working, and it really was. But 4.5 hours, I think you could give it a month and let it steep for a while, and you could get and improve on that. But also, I started picking gorse. Again, this is part of wild food. You learn uses of it, and we only know what we know because somebody else told us or they put it in a book. But there's stuff that's forgotten. Now, it's famed for making a really good wine. Well, fine. And sadly, the friend of mine that made the wine sadly died now. But many others make the wine. I'm going to make some. But I haven't yet. Again, this is the thing. It's just taking the initiative. It seems so obvious to have this amazing substance that can make a lovely wine. I know making wine is not a straightforward process, but I made it as a 11-year-old at school or something like that. I was at home, but making it, I thought I'd make some wine. It was a homebrew kit, and it was a pretty crappy-looking wine, actually. You know, from some powder, whatever it was, that was a homebrew kit, but with a proper plant. Absolutely lovely. So, great wine. But yes, I've used broom buds, another yellow flower, and they talk about that on a tomato salad, but broom is only around very brief season. And I just started seeing gorse and thinking, well, why not just start putting the leaves, the petals, not the whole flower. The whole flower tastes a bit grassy, but the petals, use those. So scatter the petals, and that works very well as a scattering for tomato salad. And you can make gorse flower tea, and something I made earlier. It's okay. You get the scent of it, but it's an instant thing. If you're out camping, going back to your tents tonight, good luck to you. So there is gorse out at the moment, but it's not out here. It's the funny thing. You'll be out one place and not out the other. But there are gorse flowers to be had, so if that's one plant you could pick, and it's pretty easy to know what gorse is, with its prickly spines and all of that. And this is what makes certain plants distinctive, and that makes it easy to work out what they are. But anyway, that's a really easy thing to do. Gorse flowers in a cup of hot water, bit of honey, and you're off. So this is the dandelion plant. Bit of a sort of cluttered photograph, but there it is sitting in the middle there. We were looking at some earlier, and I was talking about how you've got to wait for a plant to grow up and fully mature, because while it's in a small state, you can confuse it for another plant. And it's only when it fully opens up do you know what it is. And even then, you still don't necessarily know what it is. It's this thing about flowering and waiting a year, look at the flower and see it flower, and only then do you know what it is. And as we know, the dandelion is a very distinctive flower. But there is another plant out there with a flower that looks just like a dandelion flower. Lord knows what it is, but it isn't dandelion. So just because you've seen a dandelion flower doesn't mean it's the same plant. It's probably related, but it grows much bigger. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? A plant about this big? Slightly smaller flowers. Yeah. Exactly, and it's the thing. So it's not an exact science in that sense, but it is. But you have to get everything matching: the flower, the leaf shape, the season. I can tell the difference between a Spanish broom and an English broom. One is poisonous, and one is not, because one comes out early and the other comes out in July. And I saw it in July, and I thought, well, I know that that's not the English, that's the Spanish one. That's the poisonous one, because it's nowhere else. Every other broom plant I've seen is now no longer flowering. So just because of the time, you can tell. But otherwise, you could think, well, you could easily make a mistake. And of course, what can you do with dandelion? Well, you can make dandelion coffee. We ground up you roast the root, and then you, with a pestle and mortar, break it up. The root actually tastes a bit like coffee, like a coffee bean, so it's pretty cool. Talking about the lady earlier, the issue about whether it has caffeine in it, I don't think it does. So it's not got the same kick as a cup of coffee, but it's similar. And again, if you're stuck out in nature without a cup of coffee, I reckon you'd make do with that. And I was surprised how good it was when I made it. I'd had it as a child. My mum had given me some. I just thought it was some hippie thing and wasn't really very interested. But it was actually, trying it this time around, I was impressed. It was a good drink. Elderberries. Now we've got a few elderberries here. And of course, we've missed the elderflower, which I'll show you in a second. But again, just beautiful. I mean, look at that. And a little closer look. And they're just a beautiful plant. You can make wine out of the elderberries. And again, discussed it with the people earlier. Eating these raw is not what it's about. It's what the Romans did. To eat 16 courses of a feast. They used to then, in between, by the 5th course, they're full to the top. So they'd then pick themselves a load of these elderberries, chomp them down, and induce vomiting. And that's what these elderberries do, is induce vomiting. So it's not about eating them raw. Though one lady said she has eaten them raw as a child, or she has eaten them in the past, maybe one or two. And I have a childhood memory of eating them. I've tried them, because they look, we all know, oh, it's the elderflower tree, elderberries, why not? I can eat one. But it's not about eating lots of them. Then you're going to run into problems. So again, that's the thing, the knowledge of how to use a food. And a food can be literally poisonous. If it induces vomiting, that's a sort of like a poisonous plant. There's a lot of poisonous plants out there that aren't going to kill you. They're just going to put you into an uncomfortable situation. And but this is the thing, again, knowledge. This is elderflower. Beautiful. I was talking earlier, there's a lady who makes elderflower cordial. And you need quite a lot of the elderflower to make a cordial. But with elderflower champagne, you need just 3 fronds. 3 of the big flower heads, which for the lazy forager, which I think I could put my hand up. I mean, I'd have to do it as a business, and if I have to go out there and pick 2 kilos of it, I'll go and pick 2 kilos of it. But it takes time. But yeah, for champagne, literally 3 fronds. Put them in some water, some lemons, a bit of sugar, and some white vinegar, and that's how you make it. And then you let it sit for 24 hours. And at 24 hours, I was telling people earlier again, you put your nose over that bowl and you will smell the smell of smells. It's beautiful. I mean, when you smell elderflowers, if you keep them, they can actually smell of cat pee sometimes in certain situations, but not once they've steeped like that. It has a sweet aroma, and you really get excited by it, and you can just start drinking the water straight away there. It's probably pretty similar to the cordial effect, but it hasn't taken its intensity. But bottle it up, 6 to 10 days later, you've got elderflower champagne. And obviously it's not really an alcoholic drink. There's obviously a minor amount of alcohol in it, but that has got to be a really good thing to do. And again, really easy. 3 fronds, so it's not much. Lemons, sugar, bit of white vinegar, hot water, boom. And a bottle that doesn't blast its lid off. So this is the one I used earlier. And that's not elderflower champagne, it's some spring water. But yeah, a nice wired down lid is what you need for that. A little gadget to show you while I'm here. If you are hauling huge quantities of wild food, then I spotted this while I was out walking one day. And you can carry, I carried 13 kilos, that's not very good. I carried 13, I had whatever it was, a big weight of sea purslane. Yeah, that's a simple thing, but in fact that was what I discovered. It had this thing that hung on the shoulder like this, so it was just absolutely perfect. And I just walked off from this estuary with this massive weight of sea purslane, and all from a piece of driftwood. There are other plants that do all kinds of interesting things. I didn't find them. There's a lovely one, it's called butterbur, and it's got this massive great leaf. And its principal use is for storing butter, keeping butter cool in winter, in summer days. But you fold it over and store the butter, but it's got this massive leaf. But I also read you can pop it on your head and it acts as a sun shield. So you can have this big leaf on your head as a sun shield, but also it stops the rain. So it's like this kind of multi-combination. And I was looking as we were walking earlier for the alder tree, which is distinctive. It's the only deciduous tree with cones on it. And apparently, if you put a load of alder leaves on the ground and walk on them with your bare feet, it soothes sore feet after a long walk. Hairy bittercress. Not the nicest of names. It's hairy, partly because we'll go and have another look at it. Yeah, you can't really tell here, but yeah, there's a sort of hairs on the leaf. That's why it's called hairy bittercress. But it's absolutely lovely salad vegetable. Anybody with a garden might recognise this because it's the first weed to show itself in your garden. If you turn the ground, yeah, that's basically turn the ground, just turn over some ground, and first plant to arrive, first weed is hairy bittercress. But really, I mean, a weed doesn't do it justice. There's so many plants we call weeds that really, it's not really fair to call them a weed when they're a delicious plant. But yeah, people are, it's a bane or whatever it is for the gardener. They have to rip it out, and it grows and grows more, and every time they rip it out, they rip the ground and more comes out. But that's a lovely plant out at the moment. But again, we didn't see any on our walk, so it's interesting. I say you find everything within 30 feet, but you don't find everything. And what you have to do is look for broken ground. So this is where they've done some JCB work in the side of a forest and made a track and thrown the earth, and that's why that's arrived in profusion. But other places you find is where cows are feeding by a river and break the ground. So you get to learn to look for certain characteristics in the land that are going to tell you what you're going to find. Crataegus, hawthorn. We've got plenty of hawthorn out here in the displays. Here's hawthorn berries ripening. Yeah, we found some slightly riper earlier, but these are ripening. So it shows you different states, so different trees, different states. And this is an example. I was telling people earlier how you have to go into the heart of the forest to find a soft leaf. Normally, again, you'd pick this in spring, eat it in spring. Eaten by children on the way to school, known as poor man's bread and cheese. And it's a good feed, I think was the word I used earlier. It's a good leaf, but outside, exposed in the sun many months after May, and it's got this glossy finish and gets a bit rough and tough. So you go into the heart of the forest and you can find softer leaves. So we're eating leaves in the forest that are really nice, but these leaves are all glossy and have hit by the sun. But they're now producing these berries. But down the way, we found a tree massively in berry. Let's have a look at some of those berries. You can make a jelly out of them again, using the pectin from that crabapple if you want. I mix them with the rosehip, but absolutely beautiful. And of course, it's known as the May tree also, because in May you've got the hawthorn blossom, this lovely white blossom. It's got a nutty taste to it, and you can make preserves out of it, and that's really good. We've got the hawthorn tree. That's just a picture just to show you. It's a magnificent tree, and when they get mature, they're really quite lovely. Now, this picture I did take not 2 days ago. I took it last year, and really, for me, this just sums up, you know, the environment that these plants live in. This is just round towards Newport, so you go round the Exelis, and that's where you'll see that we're over there, sort of thing. But so there's a hawthorn tree in Berry, and there's the Exelis, and you know that tree has just been living there over the years. And obviously, the older the tree, the more years it's just been living there, and that's its environment. And that's the environment where you go and find these foods. Now, obviously, every environment different. I was with this school that I mentioned for My Precious Planet up in Birmingham, Warsaw, and not quite as beautiful as this. But as soon as you get off the road into the wild, you start finding lovely bits, and I think that's part of foraging, getting yourself out into some beautiful parts of nature. And this I just thought was a beautiful sum up of the hazelnut. It just looks lovely, and we actually found quite a haul of them. But I've never been that lucky with them, and squirrels tend to get them before we do, and this is a whole thing with foraging, is trying to get there before certain animals do. I have a rule with people that work for me or with me, picking wild food. If there's a wild bee or a fly or insect on a plant helping itself to the nectar off that plant, you can't have it, even if it means driving another mile now to go and get another one. But obviously the insect moves on eventually, but it's it feels to me that they've got a priority. And this year, with the bees and the wasps having a shortage of sugary substance. Yeah, it feels particularly poignant that you can't just it's for them and for us, and just for me to sort out some chef up in London. That's I come second in the queue. But hazelnuts, yeah, the squirrels will obviously collect those and normally get them before we do. And again, the leaf, it's about identifying the leaves, understanding the leaves of the plants, and that's the hazel leaf. This is heather. Now we've got some heather on the front of the stage here, and just a beautiful plant, and just the way it hangs, and lovely thing for flower arrangement. You pick that now, those flowers will stay like that. They'll dry on themselves, and you can keep that for the year. So you can have it in your house. You can have pink flowers for a year. I don't know if everybody knows, but some time ago we used to get paintings of tulips, because whatever it was, 150 years ago, and painters used to be paid the equivalent of £30,000 for a portrait of some tulips, because they couldn't, they weren't flown over from Schiphol or whatever, and people would pay just to have these beautiful flowers in their house in a form of painting. So yeah, it's a lovely thing just to pick and have there. But you can also make tea out of it. But you can also make a brew, an alcoholic brew, and alcohol seems to start fights. It's something, I don't know what it is, but anyway. Not that I got involved in the fight, but there was this village many years ago that had the recipe for a mix of this heather brew, because apparently it's got sugar enough in it to make the alcohol, to turn into alcohol. And so this village had the recipe, and I can't remember, they were Vikings or whatever. They came across anyway. They killed everybody in the whole village until it was just the father and the son left who knew the recipe. And they were torturing everybody and killing them, and so just father and son left. And the father said, "Oh, God, kill my son. Yeah, but I can't see you torture him anymore. Kill him. I'll tell you the recipe." So they killed him, and then looked at them and said, "My lips are sealed." And they obviously were not going to get, because he thought his son might talk. So he kept the recipe. So again, this is about hidden recipes, but that's heather. And the heather bush, again, just a beautiful looking plant. Heather on the mountain, again, the scapes that you find these things. That's one particular heather. There are two. You've got a bell heather. There's a couple of heathers out there. Hedge sorrel. I was talking about with the blue sky earlier about weather. And one of the lovely things is sorrel, this hedge sorrel, likes sheltered areas. It likes spots where, shelter. And so you can be walking on a lane, and the way to find it is going to be like a cold, March, spring day, whatever, and biting cold wind, blue sky, and you're walking along these little country lanes. As soon as you find yourself in some shelter, and the wind is howling above your head, but there's no breeze on you, have a look around, and that's where you'll find the sorrel, because it likes the shelter. It's as simple as that. And so again, you can just literally be walking and then think, I think there'll be sorrel here, and there it'll be. And it's this sort of spear-shaped leaf. There's another plant coming up with a spear shape, but anyway, sorrel. It's called Rumax acetosa, so it's got a similar connection to the Latin name, but Rumax is a different family, no connection to the wood sorrel, but similar lemony tang. So make a sauce out of it, great in salad, very kind of prolific plant, so you can pick plenty of it. Hogweed, showing some people earlier, it's an example of a plant. You've got the giant hogweed introduced by the Victorians, grows to 3 meters. They spotted any big magnificent plants they could, like rhododendrons and stuff, which have sort of, well, I worked with the National Park in Snowdonia for a while trying to, I barely got involved, but I thought I was going to help them try and clear this rhododendron, because it's a real problem. It's spreading and destroying the park, and they're trying to cut it back. And what I knew was that you can make money from the shoots. If you chop a big bush of rhododendron down and then let the new growth come up, each of those shoots is worth 30p or 40p or whatever. And you chop a load, and I met a truck who comes from Amsterdam, and he comes and picks it up from you anywhere in the UK. And a friend of mine makes £30,000 a year up in Scotland from doing this. So I thought I'd have a go, but Jesus, it was hard work. We were out there in January, this is when you have to do it, and there's snow ploughs moving up and down through Snowdonia, and it's freezing cold, and you're out inside the mountains. You only have to slip and break a leg, and you've had it. And you do this, it was just too hard. It was the wrong, working up in the mountains. It was tough, but I'm sure if you did it right, you can pull it off. Hogweed, anyway.
What do the Dutch do with the roots?
You're asking about what the Dutch do with the roots, with the shoots of the rhododendron, flower arrangement. Simple as that. They use it for flower arrangement. Anyway, hogweed. So not necessarily used in flower arrangement, and in fact illegal to move the giant hogweed, because if it sows its seed, it's a banned plant. But it doesn't really grow down this area. We have the ordinary hogweed, the smaller hogweed, which is this one here. But it's hard to tell the difference. They're very similar when they first unfold. And yeah, you can tell the difference anyway. Red spots is what you're looking for, and there's no red spots on this, so this is ordinary hogweed. I also know that the giant hogweed is only found in Oxford and that area, more so than here. But Roger, sorry? And Devon, yes. No, it's all over the country, but in certain sporadic points. Down in Peddine, there's some of the giant hogweed. But yeah, it's said to be a delicious vegetable. The new shoot and steamed a bit like asparagus. Really good. Here we have coming up well, that's a zoom in of the hogweed. Again, that's where it's really difficult to tell if it is hogweed or not. And but again, I went and found the real thing. If you get hit by the real hogweed, you'll get big blisters coming up. It reacts to the light, and you end up in hospital. So you need to get that one right. But that's the unfurled Meadowsweet. Beautiful plant, used as a substitute for honey. I've described it as a medieval treat. Used to strew it about their properties, and that would help get rid of the stench or whatever it was of medieval homes. But yeah, you can how do you call it? You boil it in a bit of milk in a muslin cloth, and you can get quite a really nice flavour out of it. And that's something that I have tried, and it's really good. And Panna Cottas is the word the chefs use. They do with it, make ice cream, but it's got a really lovely. It's an intriguing taste. It's funny, if you eat it, it tastes like TCP. I've yet to get to the bottom of whether it is TCP, but it's just like TCP. Just like, you might as well literally touch some TCP on your tongue. But if you smell it, it smells sweet. And if you haven't got any sugar, this is your substitute for sugar. It is a honey-like plant. The stinging nettle, well, self-explanatory, common plant, and I haven't bothered to bring any, but we found it out there. Stinging nettle, as we all know, the antidote to stinging nettle is, I've obviously discussed this with some people earlier, dock leaf. But where is a dock leaf when you need it? The antidote to the stinging nettle is, in fact, also the stinging nettle. Just screw up the stinging nettle, get the juice off it, and you can sort yourself out. Edible, yes, you can rich in minerals, and you can stir fry it. It's about a taste. You can make beers out of it, and one interesting thing on the medicinal side, ladies, it can help you with your PMT. My girlfriend suffers asthma. I made an infusion of it, and it seemed to help calm things down. And for gents, which is our problem, and it's a serious problem, hair loss. And this stuff sorts you out. I'll say no more. There's a lot of money to be made, though it is actually done already, and there is another wild herb you can mix with it to increase its potency. But I think I'm going to play safe. We all seem to lose our hair at some point, so I'm going to start putting a brew together and start using it. And yeah, there it is, and there's some insect enjoying it. And pick like a man of metal, and you don't get stung. Pick like a lady of silk. I'm quoting a poem very badly. If you read the poem, it's nothing like that, but it's something like that. It's about handling tough, you don't get stung. Handle soft, and you do get stung. Pennywort. We found some of that while we were out walking earlier. I love this one. Mushroom of the vegetable world, I describe it. And there you are, you can see it in big writing, the mushroom of the vegetable world. And a quite cool little photo, I thought, of Pennywort tucked away. You have to be careful when you pick it up. Roots get ripped out the ground, so you pop the roots back, and there it is. Great to eat, sort of nasturtium-like, fleshy plant, but a lovely shape. And again, really good, if you're putting a dish together to play with a bit of that. Red clover, very common plant, and people may have pulled out the stems and the petals and sucked the nectar off it. You can get much more beautiful examples of red clover than that. They get this big heads with red in the center. I'm going to try and get a picture of one next year, because this was just one I saw a couple of days ago, and but still very beautiful. And yeah, you can pluck the petals off. And I was with a chef in Bristol one day, and you don't normally interrupt the chefs when they're in service, but he was the owner, and he told me, "Come on, don't worry about it. Come, talk to me." He was frying away and all this stuff going on. And I said, "Yeah, I've got some clover today." He said, "What do you do with that?" And I said, "Yeah, look, you just pluck the petals off and then scatter them." I just scattered them across his worktop. And he looked at it and said, "I'll have some of those," he said. So I gave him a little bag. And then he took the petals, and he was just making this dish of chicken with a white sauce, and he just plucked off the petals and scattered them on the dish across the white sauce. And there's this pink on the white sauce. And then the head waiter came, grabbed it, walked backwards through the swing doors and into the restaurant. And literally, I just told him the idea. Seconds later, through the door, and the customer was being served a plate of dish with his garnish of the clover petals. And again, you make tea out of the clover and the leaves. You can eat in salad. I took this photo just to exemplify about quality. This looks a pretty manky selection of clover leaves, and that's the whole point about wild food, is to find good examples of it, because there's all kinds of stuff going on, and not all of it is that good. So you want to find the nicest looking leaves. Roseberry willow herb. Nice point here about doing. Because of my dogs, my car was parked up here, and I was told you can't have your car here. It's got to be moved. You could say that's a bummer to be told something like that, particularly when I was due here in about a minute. But nothing's a bummer. There's no reason to think everything's a problem. Of course I was happy to move it. In fact, I only had to move it a little way away. But because of moving it, on my walk back, I found this, which I really wanted to have to show you. So again, it's only through sometimes what you weren't expecting to happening, going with it, that you get to where you want to be. So anyway, this plant, intriguing, because if you're taking a medicine or eating anything, this doubles the intensity of whatever it is you've just eaten. So if I'm eating Lemsip or paracetamol at the moment, this is now going to double the intensity or the effect of that. Speaking to a herbalist or homeopath, was her training, she said it's quite likely affecting the kidneys and reducing their resilience to poisons. And so therefore the effect, as you probably know, there's no foodstuff you can eat that won't poison you, except apples. If your kidneys break down, the only thing you can eat is apples. Fact, as I understand it. Believe me if you want. But if your kidneys break down, you're in a serious situation. But anyway, if your kidneys break down, apple's the only thing that doesn't contain any poison. Whereas every other foodstuff we eat has something that's too much for us and could wipe us out. So if your kidneys are playing up, just stick to apples. There it is again, Roseberry. In Canada, they can tell the weather from this. When the last of the flowers fall off, 6 weeks, snow. Fact. Rowan berries. We've got a few rowan berries around in my display here. You can make a jelly out of these, and just a beautiful looking plant. Get them before the birds do. The birds do get them. I've been back to a tree 3 days later thinking, yeah, I know where there's a load of rowan berries. And then what they do is they peck out all the juice, and it looks like a complete berry. And then you look at it, and there's no berry inside. And then this is the bit I was looking forward to, because I've barely had a chance for a cup of tea, and there's not enough to share with you. But that's a sloe berry, and this is sloe gin. Watch. Now that is the business. And you can just get these from sloes, and it's really easy to make. Empty your gin out, half a bottle, put in your sloe berries, and maybe a bit of sugar or whatever, but that's basically it. Another little tip is in the spring, and you can get the beech tree, get the fresh beech leaves in sort of whether it's February, March when they first come out, mix them with your gin, so kind of put it in a big jar, pour in your gin, leave for 3 months. And then strain off your beech leaves, and you've got your gin with beech leaves separated, just pure gin. At that point, wait for September, October. If you wait till October for the frost, which is the best time to pick it, the birds would have taken them, then you'd have lost it. So pick them before the frost, and then put them in your freezer. And at that point, stick them in with your gin, which you made with the beech leaves. You then have a drink, which I haven't made, but apparently those in the drinking world say it is the drink. I think I hear a seagull. Sea beet, Beetus vulgaris, introduced by the Romans, brought in by the barbarians across. Though my story is, I don't think they did that. I think they just arrived and said, why are you looking so hungry? There's sea beet growing there by the beach. Eat it. It's good food. Yeah, that's sea beet. And, well, again, another plant I picked for the Queen. She seemed to eat her plate of that. This guy made a bed of, Bryn Williams made a bed of sea beet, put some turbot on it, really good dish. And you'll find it above the tide line. The tide comes up, and just above the tide is sea beet. It gets moved around by the tide, and so that's how it spreads. It gets lifted up out of its root and carried along the estuary. But it's on an estuary you're going to find it just above the tide line. When the sea beet flowers, which is just finished flowering, so we're getting these leaves now, when it flowers, you get spear-leaved orac, which is related to a plant you'll find in your gardens called fat hen. And spear-leaved orac looks like fat hen, probably tastes a bit like fat hen, but it's spear-leaved orac. Great name, spear-leaved orac. But the great thing is, when the sea beet flowers, suddenly, right next to the sea beet, you find spear-leaved orac. So it's as if nature gives us a vegetable to eat when the other vegetable is in flower. So that's a handy find. This is actually washed by the tide. So it gets washed by the tide, so you have to give it a good wash before you eat it. Sea purslane, and I did have some sea purslane. Yeah, here's some sea purslane, and that's it there. Lovely plant, and you can eat these, sort of nutty taste to the leaves, and steam it, bit of butter and pepper. Same thing with the sea beet, steam it, bit of butter and pepper, and that's a really delicious vegetable. While I'm here, this is rock samphire, and this has an amazing, really strong aromatic taste to it, and only a couple of people I've worked with have come up with anything to do with it. I'd stuffed some fish with it, and it's really good. And that's more sea purslane, again washed by the tide. Great plant, all year round you'll find that. And we're coming to a close here with the wild rose. Now you'll find this also by the estuary. In fact, I found this, I was out with Alison just before we did something with Howie's a few months ago, and this is when I took this picture. And I love the plant. I was saying to people earlier, you can put those leaves in your sugar and infuse with the sugar the rose, and you get the essence of rose in your sugar. And I titled this one Nature's Secret. Now again, back to the world of dew. Nature's secret, beauty. And I was in Spain again, as I said, last couple of weeks, and one of the waiters I met in this old Arab fort, just outside on the entrance of the fort, and the attention to detail he had with the cloth over his arm, and then he brought me out my brandy, which I have in my cafe con leche, and he brought my big glass, and he had a little cup of a thing of hot water, poured it in, and swilled it around, poured the hot water back into the jug, and then took his clean cloth and wiped it clean, and then dried it, and then poured in the brandy and served me the brandy. And everything he did that whole evening was just it was just a bar. It was just a sort of, I was just sitting on the street being fed tapas and stuff. And he took so much pride in it. I think that's obviously something on the subject of do, is to go away and do whatever you're doing, but take it really seriously and perfect it. Seek perfection. And to me, that's pretty close to perfection. That's the beauty of that. And then we have our preciousplanet.org, as I talked about earlier. That's the project that I'm leading to, that I want to work with. And well, we'll see how that goes. I've told you a bit about it. This whole lecture has just been based upon me talking and coming up with whatever it is as I winging it, whatever's the word. And I thought I'd better put some words together because the subject of do, to sort of relate to do. And these are those words that I put together. In fact, put them together while I was in the mountains in Spain, but just sort of here they are, and whether they make any sense or not, or whether, I mean, again, who am I to talk about doing? I mean, I'm doing my best, I'm trying, but we're all learning, and I've got a big party planned when I'm 100 under an olive tree in the Mediterranean, so anybody wants to join me. I mean, life is about living and, trying to make it to 100 if you can, and past if you can. Through interaction with the environment, state of mind is improved. I think that's the key thing about everything I'm saying with foraging. It's about initiative, instinct, definitely not about money. Giving is key. Take risks, but don't be reckless. Then life looks after us in a magical way. Make something happen. Making something happen is not necessarily easy. You must clearly visualize your objectives. Believe in your project's success and adapt as required. Tell your idea to friends and perfect your pitch. If they don't get it, who will? Any criticism is a bonus, and it's a great opportunity to demonstrate why the idea is so good. If change is required, be flexible and expect the unexpected. That's the beauty of life, and why doing is such great fun. Thank you.